The MLM recruiter. Despite being one of the most common scammer types, the MLM recruiter has many similarities to today's social media influencers. Growing up as a young man or woman in this pyramid scheme, you were met with false promises, financial pressure, harsh rejection, and changing social dynamics. MLM psychology was brutal for relationships. More than 90% of MLM participants lose money. 99.6% never make a profit, and millions of friendships were destroyed. Speaking of destruction, the emotional manipulation tactics of 2010 to 2020 were also not merciful, with some reports estimating billions in losses worldwide, and other reports claiming as high as $40 billion in annual MLM revenue. After the recruitment pushes and the financial losses, families experienced emotional turmoil, leading to broken relationships in households, resulting in high divorce rates, financial stress, and a general sense of betrayal. Social media culture began to rise in the form of lifestyle posts and income claims as people searched for validation from the bleak financial reality they were presented with. Women became primary targets starting in 2010, and new recruitment opportunities for stay-at-home mothers widened as many women left isolated due to traditional employment barriers. This era saw the rise of a new type of entrepreneur in pop culture known as the boss babe, known for being predatory against previous social relationships and featuring a more aggressive and manipulative sales attitude. Today, the MLM recruiter is remembered for their psychological manipulation tactics and being able to exploit trust in personal relationships, and some say it could provide insight into modern social media influencer tactics. The crypto bro. This scammer type is also known as the financial influencer and is remembered for its greed amplification and technological manipulation tactics. The youth during this time would grow up with many platforms becoming popular and normalized, like Twitter, Discord, and Telegram. It was a major time period for financial speculation in America. Cryptocurrency, memes, pump and dump schemes, and NFT culture flourished during this time period as the golden age of retail investing began, and get-rich-quick schemes, memecoin promotions, financial advice, and lifestyle flexing became extremely popular and gathered massive followings. It was also the advent of social proof manipulation, as huge personalities like various crypto influencers began. In the investment industry, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, altcoin trading, and DeFi protocols all became large speculation vehicles. The rise of the smartphone influenced many Americans during this time period, as millions would tune in and listen to crypto podcasts, famous investment advice, and learn about financial markets in a dangerous way. Approximately 15 million Americans invested in cryptocurrency, the majority being targeted by crypto bro scammer tactics. 68.1% were influenced by social media, 31.9% were directly contacted, and would lose the average amount of $3,000. There were approximately $14 billion in crypto scam losses in the United States. As of 2023, almost 2 million of the Americans who invested in these schemes are still holding worthless tokens today. The Course Guru. The Course Guru grew up selling hope to people, witnessing both the rise of online education and the fall of traditional career security in the post-recession era. When the victims of this era began seeking solutions after financial hardship, they were faced with a predatory industry following the 2008 recession, as traditional employment opportunities betrayed worker expectations and economic uncertainty would persist for the next decade. Unlike the previous scammer types who focused on quick money schemes, the Course Guru was about selling long-term transformation, keeping victims engaged for months, and extracting maximum value. They were heavily influenced by personal development culture, the rise of online learning platforms, the development of webinar technology, and the popularization of entrepreneurship during their formative business years. Course gurus tended to target desperate people seeking career changes, and their attitude of promising specific outcomes would become criticized by future, more aware consumer protection advocates, such as government regulators. The romance scammer, possibly the most emotionally devastating scammer type, and one of the most psychologically sophisticated predators in modern history. The romance scammers were known for their ability to create deep emotional connections with complete strangers. This was due to the rise of online dating platforms, social media, and increased social isolation during the pandemic. Romance scammers influenced victims through emotional manipulation as a core psychological weapon, targeting loneliness and the human need for connection from fake profiles to elaborate backstories. On top of this, many techniques previously used by professional con artists, such as love bombing, future faking, emotional mirroring, and gradual financial requests, entered mass deployment through dating apps and social media platforms, and the average victim could experience devastating emotional and financial damage from someone they never met. Technological advances made during and after the smartphone revolution, such as photo editing apps, voice-changing software, fake video calls, and sophisticated chatbots, played a key role in the tremendous improvements in scammer capabilities. With this extended period of social isolation came increased vulnerability, especially among older adults, where loneliness, depression, anxiety, and financial insecurity all became popular emotions that romance scammers would heavily exploit. Not everything was digital manipulation, of course, as it was a time period where major psychological tactics around topics like creating false intimacy, manufacturing emergencies, exploiting religious beliefs, and leveraging family connections all became popular and heavily utilized. This was because this scammer type was a lot more patient. Many romance scammers during this time had different approaches, and a lot of them favored more long-term emotional manipulation over quick financial grabs in almost every interaction, strongly opposing typical scammer behavior that plenty of other scammer types still used. Many of these major emotional manipulation campaigns resulted in victims losing life savings that were becoming increasingly devastating, especially as the romance scammer tactics became more sophisticated and persistent. The United States would slowly see more victims reporting emotional trauma, and trust issues would rise in the following years after these experiences. The tech support scammer. This scammer type is often called the fear exploiter, which stems from their ability to create artificial panic about computer security and technology problems as a result of targeting an era of widespread computer adoption, increasing internet usage, growing cybersecurity awareness, and the rise of legitimate tech support services outside traditional computer stores. Young adults during this time period were often targeted by phone calls, sometimes characterized as urgent, desperate, and demanding. The rise of personal computers during this generation was met with increasing technological anxiety during this scammer evolution, partially due to the complexity of modern technology being introduced rapidly and widespread internet adoption being normalized. However, demographic changes brought by increased smartphone usage partially offset the declining effectiveness of traditional phone scams among younger Americans and contributed to making tech support scams more focused on older adults, more digitally vulnerable than America had ever been. Tech support scammer tactics saw many social engineering, voice manipulation, authority impersonation, and fear-based psychological pressure techniques rise in effectiveness. Technological innovation boomed during this time period, with the rise of remote desktop software competing for access from manufacturers like TeamViewer, LogMeIn, and various criminal organizations taken to the scene with their malicious offerings. Computer viruses became a legitimate concern during the 2000s and 2010s, with actual security threats becoming widely discussed across the country as antivirus companies and legitimate tech support services introducing real solutions. Compared to previous scammer types, tech support scammers were far more technologically sophisticated, as computer literacy was still relatively low among older populations. Individualism and technological dependence became one of the most defining traits with modern computer users, as the collective generation would go on to rely heavily on computers for banking, communication, shopping, and entertainment towards the 2010s and 2020s. The investment scammer. Investment scammers were the first scammer type to weaponize legitimate financial terminology, mobile trading apps, and sophisticated presentation materials. They're commonly described as the most dangerous white-collar criminals, being connected to massive Ponzi schemes. However, they are also described as the most financially devastating scammer type due to their ability to steal retirement savings and life investments since entering victims' lives than any other scammer type in history, as well as them being enabled by complex financial products and regulatory gaps. Investment scammers emerged during a time of low interest rates around the world and are targeting more victims than their predecessors. In 2020, the investment scam losses in the United States reached $3.2 billion, and these financial difficulties have led to a dramatic increase in retirement, insecurity, poverty, and a large number of elderly victims losing their life savings. Investment scammers are also more likely to target wealthy individuals than other scammer types, though many also prey on middle-class retirees. Investment scammers experienced the rise of cryptocurrency, which enabled new forms of fraud and began new investment scam categories. That's not to say traditional methods disappeared, however, as they are often characterized for their use of complex financial documents, fake credentials, and professional presentations, due to them operating in a time period where legitimate investment opportunities became more complex and harder to understand. Investment scammers are very sophisticated in their approach and not afraid to use their perceived authority. And despite the previously mentioned financial devastation they cause, more than 6 in 10 victims initially believe they are making legitimate investments, which represents their generally convincing presentation tactics in a more complex financial world. Finally, we have the social media scammer. Social media scammers are not that much different from romance scammers, but there are some key differences. While romance scammers were focused on long-term emotional manipulation and individual relationships, social media scammers target mass audiences and rely on viral distribution. People targeted during this time period have grown up with a rise of influencer culture, a sophisticated understanding of social media algorithms, with a rise of fake lifestyle content, the cryptocurrency boom, Bitcoin promotion scandals, a new generation of get-rich-quick schemes, and investment FOMO that affected most of their online experiences. On top of that, there's an ever-growing attention economy, with platforms like Instagram and more recently TikTok, transforming not just how financial advice is consumed, but their algorithms also transforming what investment information is sent out to the public. Even something as simple as investment memes, which were started by legitimate traders as jokes, have become tools to spread and popularize fraudulent investment schemes. Individualism defines the social media scammer spirit, as they have once again returned to the mass marketing approach of traditional scammers. Because of social media reach and algorithmic amplification, fraud distribution is transforming how scams are delivered, while the pandemic transformed where victims spend their time at home rather than in traditional social settings. Social media trends influence financial decisions in a much different way than before, because individual scammers are now just as capable of reaching thousands of victims as traditional scam organizations and professionally funded criminal enterprises, leading to scam types like fake investment gurus and crypto influencers being the most profitable criminal activity above traditional fraud.